Analyst has called on the federal government to address the challenges facing the economy ahead of the 2023 presidential elections. Odusesa Okunade, a chartered accountant, made this call while speaking on iBrandTV flagship program earlier in the day.
If we look at the perspective of the business, pre-election like you have in your intro, you look at it from the two sides that we are very optimistic that there will be influx of funds into the system by the politicians, considering that that's the language that will speak as people. So with this, you discover that with the funds that are made available to individuals, you will have funds so much in circulation. But the other aspect of it is that when we have pre-election issues like this, there are always problems of lack of governance. Because everyone in the system looks for a way to seek re-election, and there is a gap in governance, which affects the economic activity of both the local government, the state, and the federal government as a whole. Remember when the president came in, we had an issue of a delay in the appointment of minister that affected the economic activity of the nation. So it's not alone that we talk about the president. He's just a single man who annexes and coordinates the activity of other parastatal, other agencies, other ministries that makes him to be fulfilled as a president. And that's why we feel that pre-election year like this, you discover that we have more of people concentrating on either re-election or strategically looking at who takes over from them rather than facing governance that can enhance the economy as one.
And now our business correspondent Omobolanle Adeshi joins us in the studio to shed more light on this development. Thank you so much, Omobolanle, for joining us.
Thank you, Margaret.
All right, Omobolanle, in regards to the economic outlook for 2022, what are some of the threats to the GDP growth? Because experts fear that it may slow down the economy in preparation for the election year.
Actually, if you look at the trends we've had in the past, when it comes to electioneering year, that's the year preceding the election, we've always seen a rise in GDP, actually. And then when it comes to the election, the actual election year, it drops, the GDP drops. We saw that happen in 2002. We saw that happen in 2010. We saw that happen in 2014, years like that. But this year, a lot of inconsistencies and uncertainty have been happening, especially when you look at issues like insecurity. Insecurity has been on the rise, especially in recent times. We hear of killings, maimings, and all manner of displacement of people from their homes in different parts of the country. And then we also know about the issue of the adulterated fuel in the economy. And so a lot of people are counting their losses, especially when you look at companies, when you look at even individuals who have to buy this fuel to ensure that they power their gens, to ensure that they keep things running at home. You see that a lot of losses are happening, and a lot of people are beginning to feel the effect of this on the economy. And that would, of course, trickle down to the GDP. And then you'd see that yes, the NNPC has talked about finding a way to clean this fuel, but that would also cost money. They've talked about spending billions of naira to ensure that they clean this adulterated fuel. That would also cost money. And then we also look at the issue of the inflation that would greet the spending. A lot of spending will be done this year with by politicians who want to coerce people, who want to make sure that people vote for them. Would see. And talking about inflation, recently the January inflation rate figures were released, and we saw that there was a drop to 15.60%. That's against the 15.63% that was recorded in December. And so we see that, yes, the trend is dropping, but there's really no assurance that in the coming months, this trend will continue. That is the drop. There's a likelihood that there might be an increase, especially when the heat of campaigns and rallies begin, because politicians would want to spend more, putting more money out there into the economy. But another thing that may affect GDP growth in 2022 is foreign direct investment, that's FDI, because a lot of investors do not want to, they are skeptical about putting their money into the Nigerian economy, and that's because of insecurity, because you don't want to invest your funds in a country or in a place where you're not sure, you're not certain of what will happen tomorrow. You're not sure if your property and everything that you have put your money in will be gone by the next day. So you want to ensure that the economy is stable. And then there's also the issue of lack of continuity when it comes to government policies. A lot of government policies, we're talking about change of government. 2023, there would be a change of government. And then you're not sure if the policies would remain unchanged, because we've seen in the past that every government comes in with its own policy, and then a lot of things change, affect business owners, SMEs, and all that. They are affected, and so it affects foreign direct investment, and by consequently, it affects the GDP growth.
Well, now, there are concerns that the government might be overwhelmed in the second half of the year. How valid are these concerns, especially to the average Nigerian, that would have, of course, the ripple effects would boil down to the average Nigerian? How valid are these concerns?
Yeah, they are very valid, because if you look at the fact that right now, there are still speculations as regards who is going to campaign or who is going to throw his hat in the ring for the elections. But when we're getting towards the second half of the year, you begin to see, we'll begin to get more assured of the people who are going to be contesting. And then these people would want to put in more money as regards campaigns, as I said earlier, as regards coercing people, as regards buying people's votes and all that. And so you'd see that a lot of funds will be going out, a lot of, and the government would have to do a lot to standardize or to balance the economy to ensure that this inflation doesn't go beyond. You know, the World Bank actually predicted that Nigeria would have the highest inflation rate, globally in 2022. And so these are some of the indices they've put into place to see that the federal government might have a tough time to make sure that things are balanced.
Now, earlier you mentioned the case of the adulterated fuels that is coming to Nigerians, and the fact that clearing all of these fuels up would need money. So I want you to help us make sense of this and how it would affect the average Nigerian. No, it's okay to say that this monies will not come from the pockets of the average Nigerian walking on the road or using the fuel, but then there's always a ripple effect on it. So how would this affect the average Nigerian? It
definitely will, because yes, they've talked about, is it 20 billion naira now? I don't know the exact figures now, but they talked about some billions of naira to clear up the or to clean up the adulterated fuel, which of course shouldn't be the responsibility of the or shouldn't come from the coffers of the Nigerian, the average Nigerian. We know that when they talk about spending money, it would definitely affect the average Nigerian, because the money is not coming from the skies, it's not coming from the trees, it's coming from the TSA, the Treasury Fund, the Treasury single account of the federal government. And of course, that would eventually affect the average Nigerian. And one question Nigerians are asking is, who is responsible for importing this adulterated fuel? Why are no heads rolling? Why is nobody being punished? What are the measures put in place to avoid a future recurrence of something like this?
Just apologize.
Is the apology returning the fuel? Is it fixing the damaged cars? Is it fixing the generators that have been damaged by the adulterated fuel? Is it fixing the issues, the monies that people have spent in buying this adulterated fuel? So that's the question. A lot of Nigerians do not want to hear the apology. Even the president, who is the Minister of Petroleum, is expected to take a more decisive role when it comes to issues like this. He's been talking about being angry about the whole situation, but what has he done about it? How has he stood up to ensure that as the father of the nation, he makes every Nigerian know that I'm concerned about this and I am doing something about it?
All right, now in a nutshell, just before we wrap up, how do you think all of these issues, with the coming elections, the inflation rates, the GDP increase, how can it be curbed to the barest minimum, just so it's the effect it has on the average Nigerian would reduce to its barest minimum?
Are you talking about the insecurity?